Sunday is here. Week 1 of the NFL season is officially upon us. What's going on? Tyler Brandt here, giving you your Week 1 pregame. Everything you need to know about the Patriots and the Dolphins headed into this game. It has been too long since the Patriots lost that wild card game to the Titans all the way back in January of this year, and now it is a clean slate. We start over. We start at the bottom. Let's get into it. It is time for some pre-game Week 1 talking about the Patriots and the Dolphins. Let's get into it. Let's have a good time. Football is back. 1 o'clock p.m. on CBS here on the East Coast. Tony Romo, Jim Nantz on the call, calling some Patriots football. I cannot wait. Game 1 without Tom Brady. This is it. This is all the culmination, all the reporting, everything. It all leads to this game against the Miami Dolphins to kick off the 2020 season. The last time the Dolphins and the Patriots played each other, of course, was Week 17 earlier this year in 2020, really. But the last time they played each other, of course, was in that Week 17 game. And it was a game that really, after the game was over, they lose 27-24. New England's knocked out of that first round bye, out of the top 2 seeds. And really from that point, at least for me, it felt like things were finally not right in New England. I mean, we know that the back half of their schedule, they played pretty below average overall. And it just finally felt like something wasn't right. And of course, they go in the next week, they play the Titans wild card weekend, and they go home. Something that hasn't happened in probably, really about 10 years. So that's the story of 2019. But we flip the calendar to 2020, the 2020 season, of course. And this is a clean slate. While some of the same pieces are still here for this team, on both teams, this is a completely different matchup in what we're going to see. Of course, Tom Brady's gone. This is step 1 of a new era in New England. And even for the Miami Dolphins, while they didn't lose anybody major, they've added a ton of talent. Let's just go over that real quick. They've added Byron Jones, defensive end Shaq Lawson, linebacker Kyle Van Noy, again from New England, Ted Karras, the center, coming over from New England, 2 legitimate running backs in Jordan Howard and Matt Breida, another defensive end in Emmanuel Ogbah, a Landon Roberts also coming over from New England, and even a former Philadelphia Eagle, Cameron Grugier-Hill, who is also no slouch himself. So there's a ton more talent on this Miami team than when they played and beat New England in their building in Week 17. Let's start this comparison, this breakdown, of course, comparing the quarterbacks, the most important position on the field. And for the Miami Dolphins, it is confirmed that they will pedal out Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, the last time the Patriots saw Ryan Fitzpatrick, again, he really shattered the mold for New England, broke up the Bill Belichick and Brady era. But in that last game, he really torched a very good New England secondary. He threw for 320 yards on 28 completions, 1 touchdown through the air, 1 on the ground, and had a 99.6 passer rating, again, in that Week 17 matchup between the Dolphins and the Patriots. Now, overall, it hasn't always been very fruitful. It's actually been a very bad career for Ryan Fitzpatrick against New England. Total, he is 3 for 10. He's thrown for, believe it or not, 3,400 yards against New England in 13 games, 21 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. He's completed 61% of his passes against the Patriots and has an 80.5 passer rating. So it hasn't really been a fantastic career against New England, and New England normally fares very well against Ryan Fitzpatrick. And beyond that, Ryan Fitzpatrick in year 2 in places, it just tends to not work very well, hence why he bounces around the league so much. Normally, you catch lightning in a bottle once with Fitzpatrick, and then year 2 is a little bit rough with him, just historically. On the Patriots side of the ball, Cam Newton, the new guy in New England, the guy that is filling in for Tom Brady, the next man up in the Patriot system at the quarterback position. Now, he's played only 2 games against the Dolphins, and he's won both games, which is very promising. In those games, he's thrown for 428 yards, 5 touchdowns to only 1 interception, a 54 completion percentage, which is way too low to really be comfortable with, but a 54 completion percentage and an 89 passer rating. So some good, some bad there for Cam Newton, but 2 wins against the Dolphins is 2 wins against the Dolphins. It really doesn't matter how you get it. So a little bit of promise there for Cam Newton headed into his 3rd matchup with the Miami Dolphins. The other matchup I'm most intrigued by going into this week is the Devonte Parker versus Gilmore let's call it round 3 between the two of them. Last season in 2019, in week 1 when the Patriots, in week 2, when the Patriots blew out the Dolphins in their first meeting of the season, Parker was playing that game and he had 0 catches, 0 yards on 7 targets. So he was completely just covered, blanketed the entire game. Now you fast forward to week 17, and he completely torched the Patriots secondary and Stephon Gilmore. He had 8 catches for 137 yards. That's good for 17 yards per catch on 11 targets. So he really just balled out against New England in week 17. Stephon Gilmore, of course, getting himself that big raise, that well-deserved raise. Hopefully he's locked in, focused, and ready to reproduce in what was already an all-time great defensive back season and to reassert himself and to continue being the best cornerback in football, bar none. So that's going to be the other matchup I'm very, very intrigued about, at least in terms of one-on-one, looking at things like that. Some things I'm looking for New England to do, or some things of expectations of mine for New England in this game. First and foremost, I want to see where the pass rush comes from and how they generate a pass rush, and if they can get a consistent pass rush, how they're going to do that. This is probably the worst offensive line they're going to face in 2020. It's very, honestly, average. A lot of young guys. Eric Flowers is on this line. He's probably going to start. He's been in this league, and he's been very below average for a long time, just to say the least. So I'm very intrigued to see how they get a pass rush on Ryan Fitzpatrick and on the quarterback, because I think that if they can't get one here, it's just going to be harder week in and week out. Another thing for the Patriots defense that I'm really looking forward to watching is how New England and how Bill Belichick kind of deploys a lot of these young guys and in which roles he deploys them in. I think he's got a little more versatility than he'll have, for example, next week against the Seattle Seahawks or something like that. In this matchup for the Patriots secondary, at least on paper, they have plus matchups at every level. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is better than Devonte Parker. He should, if he's playing at his best game, cover up Devonte Parker. Same thing with J.C. Jackson and Preston Williams, or however they cover. You know, if they decide to put Gilmore on Preston and then just kind of shade the whole defense to cover Devonte, something like that, they should have the versatility to do whatever they want in the secondary, which makes me very intrigued to see how they'll use a lot of these younger guys to either get after the passer, how often they'll use, for example, a cover 0, which they used in abundance last season when they had a bunch of veterans, but now that you got a bunch of young kids playing, do they use cover 0 as much as they did in 2019? It's little questions like that that I'm curious to see what the kind of defense they're going to run is, and what the best defense they're going to use, and the most productive defense they're going to use, and how often they use each defensive front. Offensively, for New England, I think that we're going to see a ton of pounding the rock, of running the ball. Miami gave up 135 yards per game on the ground in 2019. Now, I think that number will get a little bit better, but I don't think their defensive line is excellent just yet. Christian Wilkins is pretty good, getting better every year, but I don't think they're really at the super competitive level on either side of the trenches, but specifically here, the defensive line. So I think we're going to see a heavy emphasis on running the ball. I think Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead are going to get a lot of work, especially Rex Burkhead, because he's healthy and he did have a great camp. I think a lot of the Patriot runs are going to be over guard, over center, interior offensive line work. I think that's probably going to be the most effective spot for them to run the ball, considering Kyle Van Noy, who I will be watching as to where he lines up on which side of the Patriots offensive line he lines up. He is a very good and excellent edge setter, so I don't think they're planning on running at Kyle Van Noy too much. At least I wouldn't think they were. And even Emmanuel Ogbah, who should come in and have some productive snaps for the Miami defense, he's no slouch against the run either. Not as good as Van Noy, but he, again, is no slouch against a running defense. On the other side for the Miami Dolphins, I also would expect them to run the rock with these two new prize running backs that they have now. Both Jordan Howard and Matt Breida are very, very good, especially in terms of yards per carry. While they're not superstars or, the faces of running backs, they still are very, very effective backs. And I think in that sort of group and working together, I think they'll be very good. And not to mention, New England also themselves wasn't great against the run in 2019. They gave up around 100 yards per game. And I still think, and I've said it all offseason, the bigger problem for me of the Patriots defense is going to be not only rushing the passer, but I don't think they're going to be an elite run-stopping team. I think that's going to be another issue for them. So I think Miami should probably run right at New England too. Although Fitzpatrick has thrown the ball, 40 times a game before. But I also wouldn't want to continue to roll the dice with Fitzpatrick throwing at that New England secondary when that, New England run defense, I think, could be a little suspect, especially early in the year. I think it'll take both teams about a quarter, like we saw on Thursday Night Football. It'll probably take the first 15 minutes of the game to get back into the groove of, how the NFL works and the game speed, and especially for Cam Newton getting caught up in the whole, returning to football and getting back up to game speed and watching how everything goes. I think he's going to really miss not having a preseason. So I think it's going to take a little while for things and everything to get up to speed. But I think both teams are pretty good. I think this will be a grinded out game. I don't think there's too much of a gap between the two teams. Cam also kind of admittedly says he doesn't understand, every single corner of the Patriots playbook. He's still learning it, and he expects to be able to do everything that New England asks him to do in week 1. But again, he had virtually 6 weeks to learn the entire Josh McDaniels offense. That was a superhuman task. So I think it's going to be a very straightforward kind of game plan for the Patriots. Not going to do anything too crazy. Pound the rock, some easy completions for Cam, get his confidence back, get him back to used to playing in the NFL again. And I think that'll be enough. As long as they don't turn the ball over or do anything crazy, I think just by, again, easy completions, pounding the rock, owning time of possession, they'll be able to grind out a win against the Miami Dolphins. Beyond that, the Patriots usually fare pretty well week 1s. They'll occasionally drop one here or there, but they occasionally fare pretty well. Normally, they're used to playing some sort of a national primetime game in week 1, but they're stuck to 1 o'clock on CBS. However, they do have CBS's A-Team on the call, which will always be a joy to listen to. So the Patriots and the Dolphins, week 1, 1 o'clock on CBS. I can't wait to watch it. Vegas has the line at the Patriots a 6.5-point favorite. That's what, at least everything that I saw, had them at a 6.5-point favorite. As a bettor, I'm taking the Miami Dolphins with those points. I think it'll be a very close game. I don't think it'll be a touchdown difference. So basically, I have the New England Patriots winning this game 24-20. I think it'll be a pretty close game, a grind all the way. The over-under set by Vegas also is 42. I think that over-under, I think it'll be very close to that number. But I think the Patriots will just do a little bit more. They won't turn the ball over, and they'll grind out a win against the Miami Dolphins, starting their season 1-0 before they go across the country and play the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. Leave your game predictions down below. Tell me what you think the final score is. What do you think will be some of the keys to the game? Leave it all down in the comments below. If you don't already, follow me on Twitter at @TheTylerBrant. Follow me on Instagram at TalkingPats. Chop it up about anything Patriots related. I'd love to get into it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're growing every day, and I love to see that number get bumped up a little bit more. And I appreciate every single one of you that do subscribe. If you want to chat on Twitter, especially, I live stream or live tweet all the Patriot games. I'm very active while they play, so get at me on Twitter. Again, we can have fun talking the game as it happens. Once again, I'm Tyler Brandt. I won't take any more of your time. Go watch Fox pregame. Go watch ESPN pregame. Do whatever your pregame ritual is. Enjoy the Patriot game today, and I'll catch you on the next video.